You learned that cacao and chocolate comes from a fruit. I think my job here is done.
I'm such a moron. Does everybody know that?
It's becoming more and more a known fact, but like I'm not surprised at all that people still don't know because we always just assume chocolate is this low wrapped bar that's sitting on a shelf in a gas station or in a supermarket. Where does it actually come from? It actually is derived from a fruit. I mean, it's one of the most fascinating things that like I could happily talk about like for hours.
I'm Matt Zucker, and this is Cidiot, learning to live and love life in the Hudson Valley. One of the best parts of moving to the country is discovering that local doesn't just mean farm-fresh eggs and kale. It also means world-class indulgence. Today we're diving into the sweet side of the Hudson Valley with someone who turned a passion for fine dining into an award-winning chocolate empire. Joining me is Bryan Graham, a chocolatier and co-founder of Fruition Chocolate Works. Based right here in the region, with shops in Shokan and Poughkeepsie, and even a footprint in Cambridge. Bryan's taking us behind the wrapper. We're talking about the journey from the kitchen to the cacao bean. Did I say that right? To dark chocolate, milk chocolate, hot chocolate, iced hot chocolate, and unique collaborations in between. I learned a lot, and like you, left hungry. Grab a bar, settle in, and let's get started.
Moved up from the city, it's a new way of living and I'm trying to get used to it. One park coolers have an ounce of an idiot. Ordered a Manhattan and they call me a Cidiot. At first I hurt my feelings, but it's kinda got a ring to it. When you move to the country, they can tell when you're new to it. I'm looking at a place, but I'm trying to keep fitting in. It takes too long to be a local, so for now I'm a Cidiot.
Hi, Bryan.
Hey, Matt. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so excited to talk about chocolate and get to know you. But maybe first, what's your connection to the Hudson Valley? Are you from here? Did you move here like me?
Yeah, I grew up here, spent a lot of time in the Catskills. My mother's family owned a dairy farm in Andes. I used to spend a lot of time there. I grew up in sort of like Crumville, Sampsonville, like weird area that like you can't really find on a map. But
I don't know where that is.
Town of Olive, about 20 minutes from Woodstock. And yeah, it's always been a place that as I was growing up, like everybody wanted to leave. Everybody wanted to get out and find something exciting and maybe in New York City or abroad. And for the most part, I always wound up staying here. And then as I got older, I sort of realized this is one of the most beautiful places in the country and such a special place. So through an adult perspective, like this is a really amazing place to be and raise a family.
So you planned on staying, but did you plan on being a chocolatier? Like, what was the plan?
Yeah.
You went to school here too, right?
I did. I knew that I wanted to work in food. I thought I wanted to be a chef when I was younger. I thought I wanted to work in restaurants. And through a community mentoring program at my high school at Onteora, I was placed at a restaurant called the Bear Cafe in Woodstock. It had gone through like several iterations, but at the time in the late 90s, it was the fine dining restaurant, the place to be. I started working there, peeling carrots and whatnot. And then one day there was just like there was nothing for me to do in the kitchen. So the chef said, go downstairs and work with the baker for the day. And I did. And that kind of changed my entire outlook, my entire life. I fell in love with baking and pastry. I was 16 or 17 at the time. And I started working there after school on weekends. And then eventually, just like by default, because everybody else had left, I became the pastry chef there. So it forced me to get really good really fast. I loved it. I always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to go to the CIA, the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park. And it's a very expensive school. I and my family didn't have the means for me to enroll. So I just worked from the time I was 18, when I started working as the pastry chef at the Bear Cafe, until my mid-20s. And then at a certain point, I kind of said, I've got to find a way. So I found a way, and I went to school, and with a solid background of baking and pastry, I excelled there. But there was a 2-week course on chocolate and confections, and I just fell in love with it. Not only did I decide then that I wanted to be a chocolatier, I wanted to dive deeper into the process. Like, how is chocolate made? Where does this thing that we just like buy off the shelf, where does it come from? How is it made? So I got like into that rabbit hole.
How is it made? I had
Yeah.
to jump on that. By the way,
Yeah.
you don't just buy it on a shelf?
No, oddly enough.
The chocolate
Um,
tree? Their tree?
Yeah. So it's the sort of rule of thumb is that 20 degrees above or below the equator, it's a tree that grows in the tropics. It's a beautiful fruit tree.
It's a fruit tree?
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah. Cacao grows on trees and it's a fruit. And the seeds, the things that we call cocoa beans, are the seeds of that fruit. So actually, here's a
You're showing me.
audio listeners won't be able to hear, but here's a little, basically life-size cacao pod. So inside of these fruits, there's this sort of like white, sweet, delicious, sticky pulp that surrounds about 40 or 60 seeds. And those seeds are harvested. They're usually brought to a centralized fermentation facility. They're fermented, which kind of begins the process of what we know as chocolate flavor. And then they're dried, usually in open air in the sun. And then they get bagged up and shipped to chocolate makers like us.
And are there different, when you get into white chocolate, dark chocolate, is it different seeds for those things, or that's later in the process? It's not like wine for grapes.
Yeah, one really interesting parallel is wine and grapes and varietals and processing and harvesting. So depending on the country of origin, the place within that country, how like the genetics of the cacao itself, and then how it's harvested, processed, all of that happens before these cocoa beans even get to me. So it's a really phenomenal thing. A lot of like mass produced chocolate that we're familiar with is meant to taste the same all the time. Pick up a fill in the blank, like industrial chocolate maker chocolate bar from the gas station or whatever. It's going to taste basically the same today as it will next year and the following year and the following year. They're trying to standardize it. Whereas what we're trying to do is really highlight the differences between year, harvest, batch. So even though it's going to mostly taste the same year to year, batch to batch, depending on the climate, depending on rainfall, depending on temperature, heat, those are all going to have effects on the flavor of that cacao. So we try to like showcase that.
We'll get into Fruition in a second, your business, but I'm a snob. So if I want to look at what's good, what do I look for?
Look for somebody who is really proud and open about their sourcing practices, where their cacao is coming from, who grew it. You know, a lot of the cacao that we use, we can trace back, like we know exactly the cooperative or the farm or some of the farmers themselves. Cacao in general it's a commodity crop. A lot of it, 70 something percent of the world's cacao is grown in West Africa. And you don't really know much about the provenance of that cacao. We like really pride ourselves on knowing exactly where it's grown, who grew it. And if we haven't personally been there, we work with transparent trade companies that know all of this stuff, that do the legwork. So any chocolate maker or any chocolatier worth their salt would be really proud to tell you exactly where they're getting their chocolate or where they're getting their cacao if they're making chocolate from bean to bar.
So what about Fruition? Like, how did you start your own brand?
We've been doing it for a little over 15 years now. I knew that I wanted to be a chocolatier. That was what I realized in culinary school was, even though I had like a lot of good experience in other parts of the baking and pastry and culinary world, there was something about chocolate that just really jumped out at me. And I thought like, okay, I'm going to be a chocolatier. So I'm going to like make beautiful bonbons and confections and things. And then as I usually do with other pursuits, I like jumped down the rabbit hole and I wanted to find out more about how chocolate was actually made. So I decided that, okay, I'm going to be a chocolatier. What could be my angle? What could be unique about what we do?
Yeah.
And I thought maybe we'll just learn how to make our own chocolate. At the time, it was the early stages of the American craft chocolate movement. When we started, there were maybe 15 or 20 companies in the US that were actually like importing cacao, turning it into chocolate. We were among that sort of first wave, maybe second wave of companies that were doing that. And that's what I initially thought would make our brand unique. And it spiraled from there. And we went into it. When I say we, I mean myself and my wife, Dahlia, who's co-founder. We didn't really know what we were doing, had some good ideas, had no money, started out incredibly small, like really bootstrapped it with the help of our families and stuff. And it caught on. It was a really beautiful process in the early days. Difficult, but really nice.
And how does being rooted in the Hudson Valley shape it? I mean, is there something Hudson Valley-ish about it besides obviously you went to CIA here and you're here?
It's tricky being a food company, a food manufacturer in the Hudson Valley when your main ingredients come from thousands of miles away. It was really important to us to try to find ways that we could instill a sense of place. I'm from here. My wife is from here. Our families are here. So how can we take something that we're doing that's like a high-end chocolate company and tie it to our roots, tie it to the Hudson Valley? So we work with a lot of local farms for inclusions for our chocolate bars and bonbons, distilleries, breweries. So like, even though the majority of the raw ingredient comes from certainly not the Hudson Valley, the Catskills, we try to do a lot of collaborations with companies near us.
Let's talk about your product line or the types of chocolate. Explain to us, Cidiot, what are the categories? Like, how should I think about it? And of course, what's your favorite? Which I know you don't have, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I don't have a favorite because I'm the one that's usually developing every new product. So like at the time that I'm like working on something, like that's the favorite. Like that's the one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, tell me about some crazy innovations as well. Yeah.
Early on when we were getting started, the trend in like American craft chocolate was high percentage 2-ingredient dark chocolate. So meaning like really showcasing the terroir, the flavor of a particular cacao. And it was almost heresy to add additional cocoa butter or vanilla or make a milk chocolate or, God forbid, make a white chocolate or something. Coming from my perspective was, as a chef, as a creative person, like that made no sense to me. Like, why would you want to limit yourself to just something like very strict and very straightforward when a lot of your customers may not appreciate that? They may want something that's nostalgic. For somebody like me who grew up eating like Hershey's bars or like Crunch bars or Snickers or whatever, I looked at it as, how can we make the best version of, we're going to make milk chocolate, we're going to make the best version of a milk chocolate possible. If we're going to make our version of a sort of Snickers bar, we're going to make the best version possible. And because we're creating all of our base ingredients to make these confections, I didn't want to limit ourselves to making just high percentage dark chocolates. So we make everything from our version of a white chocolate all the way up to a 100% dark, the entire gamut. And there's everything in between: milk chocolates, inclusion bars, dark milk, like on the edge.
What's an inclusion bar?
Just any chocolate bar that has an additional flavor or filling. You know, we'll maybe like put passion fruit, freeze-dried passion fruit puree and Pop Rocks, and that's an inclusion bar. So
Pop Rocks?
Yeah, super fun.
Do you do anything like Kit Kat? My husband Bryan loves Kit Kats. When he goes to Japan, he picks up like Hello Kitty green flavored Kit Kats.
We don't do a Kit Kat type bar, but we make like our versions of classic chocolate bars or candy bars that you might have heard of. I'm so happy you said that, because We're stuck with just our regular old Kit Kats. Japan has all the fun ones.
Is there any Hudson Valley special flavors or things?
Yeah, we work with a farm called Westwind Orchard in Accord. We do a series of chocolate bars with them. It's a collaboration bar. So some of their beautiful, fresh, organic raspberries, we'll take them, freeze dry them, and add that to a dark chocolate. We do a pumpkin spice milk chocolate using pumpkins that they grew, a chili chocolate bar with chilies that they've grown. So we try to find companies. There's Tuthilltown Distillery. We work with them quite closely. We've made a bourbon infused dark chocolate milk chocolate bar. One of our best-selling bonbons is it's a brown butter and bourbon caramel.
Yum.
Made with their bourbon.
Maybe we could do a Cidiot bar, like a Cidiot collab. It'd be like, I don't know, the newcomer to chocolate, or like for the naive, or goat milk. I don't know, like I don't know what would be in it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's find a way to make that happen. I'm open to ideas.
Thanks for listening to Cidiot. You can tell I love chocolate. Fruition Chocolate Works has a special 20% off offer for Cidiot listeners, which could be inspiring for gifts for Mother's Day, Father's Day, or any time. Get 20% off when you shop their website or in person at their 2 stores, on Route 28 in Shokan and on Eastville Avenue in Eastdale Village, Poughkeepsie. There's also a pop-up on Mass Ave in Cambridge, Massachusetts, if you're listening from there. Just use code CIDIOT20. For me, I'm into the Hudson Bourbon Dark Milk Chocolate Bar, but I'm kind of tempted to try passion fruit caramels, especially now that I can eat fruits. If you're indecisive or paralyzed by choice, you can also do a gift card. That's Cidiot20 for 20% off online or in-store. Limit to 1 use per customer. Check the episode page for a link and more details. Yum. So what about the name Fruition? I love that it's called Fruition Chocolate Works because it makes me think of Willy Wonka. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, I'm sitting at a table right now and I'm looking at the limited edition Willy Wonka Lego set
cool.
that I bought my daughter for Christmas, but really I bought it for myself.
So the name Fruition, where did that come from?
It was one of the harder things to come up with, like when we were getting started. My wife and I had the idea to start this business. We both left our jobs. She was a teacher in New York City, and I was working as a sous chef at the CIA, at the Culinary Institute. We knew we wanted to like branch out and do something on our own. So we quit our jobs and we just took 6 months off and went on a road trip across the country and spent some time in Samoa and then New Zealand, just backpacking, just trying to figure out like where we wanted to settle down and start what would ultimately become Fruition. The name itself, I think we were just walking on a beach somewhere on the coast of Oregon. We were like just walking around, like throwing out names, trying to figure it out. And then Fruition popped into my head. And this is the definition of fruition, is like coming to fruition, like the realization of a dream. It's like we were scheming and trying to figure out like how to start this business. Finally, like it's coming to fruition. But then also literally it means fruition is bearing fruit.
And it's a
cacao,
fruit.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I didn't know until today.
So that was a nice secondary meaning. It's also just a beautiful word, I think.
And you distribute a lot of places all over, but you have 2 locations, Shokan, right? And there's a new one, and they have chocolate bars.
We distribute to about 350 stores nationwide, a few international places, primarily focused on the US. We've always had a retail store and cafe attached to our factory in Shokan, which is great. We're right on Route 28. So people heading up to the Catskills for the weekend or like skiing, we're the best place to stop and get a hot chocolate or a little coffee or a snack or something. And then we recently opened a satellite retail store in Poughkeepsie in Eastdale Village. That's only a few months old, but it's off to a great start. So we're going to see how that goes. We also are running a pop-up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is our first foray out of state. And that's also off to a good start. We'll see how it goes.
How'd you choose Boston?
It was interesting. A friend of ours knows the owner of this store called Levitt and Pierce. It's on Mass Avenue in Cambridge. and put us in touch with them. They were looking for something to fill a small space within their store. And they really wanted a chocolate shop and they really wanted us. And then we decided it was a good fit. So we're giving it a shot. It's been there for a few months now. It's going well. It's in like an incredibly busy part of Cambridge. Yeah, we're just like seeing how things go.
And how'd you decide to do, well, I guess it makes sense why you did the Shokan location. How'd you decide to do a second retail location?
We'd been playing around with the idea of having more satellite retail stores. We did have a store in the town of Woodstock, right in the center of town, for a few years. We decided to close it up in 2020, like right after COVID hit and shut everything down. So we had a successful store there, but we wanted to see it increase our presence in other places. Eastdale Village in Poughkeepsie is like it's a really beautiful community. There's some great restaurants and shops, and there's a bunch of apartments and condos and a built-in clientele, like built-in customers. So we decided to open up a small, like very small, 450 square feet cafe, so we can do our hot chocolates and our mochas and, like a very chocolate-focused cafe, plus all of our regular products and bonbons and stuff. And also we're featuring a big wall of other people's chocolate. So friends of ours in the chocolate industry. We have probably one of the best selections of chocolate in the country, like in this little store. All kinds of stuff from other chocolate makers around the world that are.
Oh, that's cool. So you don't really think of other things as competition necessarily.
No, it's a beautiful thing. Like most of my closest friends are other chocolate makers, my competition.
That's funny. Yeah, I connect with a lot of other podcasters. I know this is a totally different thing, but sometimes I'm really surprised that I reach out and I want to go on each other's shows or become friends and collaborate because I don't really see it as competition.
Yeah. It's that idea, like rising tide lifts all boats. Even though the craft chocolate movement's been around for a while now, it's nice to have a sounding board for, every problem, every challenge that we're faced with. I know somebody else has gone through this or something like possibly even worse. So I've got a couple of my friends on speed dial just to check in with about the challenges of A, running a business, and B, running like a specialty food craft chocolate business.
And what would you say is the bestseller? What do people really demand? And what's like something underestimated? You can't believe people are not enjoying this other thing. What's your bestseller and your worst seller?
The surprising thing is that we're selling way more milk chocolate than we are dark. And I think that was, as I said before, the trend had been people focusing on like really high percentage, super dark, minimal sweetness chocolate bars, which is great. And it's a nice and noble thing to manufacture. A lot of people just want a really comforting, satisfying milk chocolate bar. Our milk chocolate bars and our higher percentage dark milk chocolate bars outsell pretty much everything else. So our bestseller is, we call it a brown butter milk chocolate. It's a 43% milk chocolate, meaning there's 43% cocoa nibs plus cocoa butter. And it's a sweet, milky, enjoyable, but you can still taste the flavor of the cacao. It's just a total crowd pleaser. Worst sellers are usually when we try to get a little bit creative. We've had to discontinue a few products. One of my favorites early on was dark chocolate and jalapeno dusted corn nut. So a fried corn kernel. So it's crunchy, salty, and then a little bit of dark chocolate and jalapeno powder. We developed it initially with Stockade Tavern on Fair Street in Kingston as meant to be a bar snack. So something that is like hits all of those notes, right? It's like sweet, salty, spicy, crunchy, and delicious. And we make those only for them now because nobody wants to buy them. I think it's one of the most delicious things we've ever made, but customers just don't seem to resonate with it.
Okay, so listeners, if you're into this, you got to go to the bar.
You have to go to Stockade. Yeah.
You got to go to Stockade. Oh, we're definitely going to do a Cidiot bar. And the milk, is the milk from the Hudson Valley?
No, the milk it's from Michigan. There are very few milk powder producers I would love to have it all local milk, but there's nobody in this area that's making great milk and then turning it into powder, which is the format that we have to use for chocolate.
So if I come to a store and it's like spring, it's warmer weather, so I'm not really up for hot chocolate right now. What do you think I should buy? I can't have nuts, but now I can have fruits. I just was able to start eating fruits, so listeners will not believe this. Breaking news.
Oh, wow.
So I'm really excited. I could probably try the passion fruit thing. What would you have me try? I can't do nuts, but I can do anything else.
One cool thing about going into our stores is you can taste everything. We have samples out of every product we make. If you were to try something, we're just passing hot chocolate season, but you could get an iced hot chocolate, which would just be really like a super intense, kind of chocolate milk, like an adult chocolate milk.
Ooh, I like that idea.
Yeah. I would do that, and I would probably like throw a shot of espresso in there too to make like a super intense mocha. The other thing you could definitely try though is we're serving ice cream over the summer, and in my opinion, the best ice cream producer in the region is Alleyway Ice Cream in Saugerties. We've been friends with Julian, the owner and ice cream maker, for years now, and I've always wanted to serve his ice cream, and I've always wanted to find a way to work with him. But he was like still too small, trying to figure out like logistics. This year, though, we haven't even really promoted it yet, but we've collaborated on a chocolate ice cream that he made, and it is phenomenal. So that's definitely a thing that you should come by and try too.
That's amazing. And then when wine language has all these adjectives one should use to describe and these bizarre adjectives and adverbs, what are chocolate words? What's the language of chocolate?
It's surprisingly similar to wine language. Tasting notes. I try to leave it up to everyone's interpretation. There are certain things that we say specifically on the package, so the relative sweetness of something, so the percentage of cacao in a chocolate bar. But beyond that, like I can give you some very broad flavor notes of a particular cacao or a particular region or the processing that like will be a standout. I try not to like push it down people's throats. Here's what you're tasting. I want everybody to experience it like their own way. I try to shy away from tasting notes and all of that language.
Yeah, it could sound a little bougie or douchey. I can't even say cacao. Wait, I just said it. Cacao. 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 Cacao.
That was perfect. Yeah. Sounded great. Cacao.
It's kind of a silly sounding word in a way.
Yeah. You can also say cocoa. They're interchangeable.
Oh, I was afraid to say cocoa. I can say cocoa?
Absolutely.
That's not like too down market to say cocoa?
Nope.
Cacao sounds fancier.
Okay. Cacao sounds, yeah.
Sounds very Rhinebeck. You spoke earlier about your love of the Hudson Valley. I usually ask guests their favorite spot where they go to be inspired for new crazy flavors or things like that. Like, where do you go? What's your favorite spot?
I don't get out very much because I'm a dad of a 9-year-old girl. So a lot of my free time is finding fun things that resonate with a young daughter. On the rare chances that we get out, I find a lot of inspiration, and it's not going to be food related, but I live in Woodstock, and right around us are so many incredible and historic places to go and hear live music. My wife and I spend a lot of time, the chances that we can get out, at Lee Von Helm's barn, at the Bearsville Theater, at the Colony, to just go and see live music. It's such a beautiful thing, and it's right in our backyard. I can be a world-class music venue in 5 minutes if I hop in my car. So I find a lot of inspiration, again, not food related, but I think music can really tie beautifully into the whole ethos of making a good food product, making chocolate.
Yeah, I guess like chocolate, it can touch your soul.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else I should ask you?
You learned that cacao and chocolate comes from a fruit. I think my job here is done.
I'm such a moron. Does everybody know that?
It's becoming more and more a known fact, but I'm not surprised that people still don't know. Like, because we always just assume chocolate is this flow wrapped bar that's sitting on a shelf in a gas station or in a supermarket. Where does it actually come from? It actually is derived from a fruit. I mean, it's one of the most fascinating things that like I could happily talk about like for hours.
Yeah.
And I'm, dare I say, an expert on the chocolate making side of things, but there's this whole other world of people, farmers and scientists who are finding interesting and creative ways of processing that cacao, which is a whole like separate world from what Fruition does.
Thanks for listening to Cidiot. I bet you're hungry, so be sure to stop by online or in person to Fruition Chocolate Works. Tell me what you like. Thanks to Bryan for being our very own Willy Wonka of the Hudson Valley. And thank you to Brett Barry of Silver Hollow Audio and the Catskills podcast for being the celebrity guest editor of the show. This season is already one of my favorites. I love sharing the Hudson Valley with you. Come visit.
Down in the valley, moved up from the city. It's a new way of living and I'm trying to get used to it. 1 pot noodles, half an ounce of an idiot. Ordered a Manhattan and they call me a Cidiot. At first I hurt my feelings, but it's kinda got her into it. When you move to the country, they can tell when you're new to it. I'm looking at a place, but I'm trying to keep fitting in. It takes too long to be a local, so for now I'm a Cidiot.